how my machine processes slow. When you hit live, for a second.
Spin, churn, spin.
Right. All right. So happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Man and Grill episode 20. God, 20 weeks into this already. Today was one of those ones. I've been working out with Miles. We've been doing a little weight training, and I'm trying just to get him in the habit of working out, right, and staying in shape, and just getting into the habit of it, right. And today was one of those days I had to work through this because we were at the ball game last night. We didn't get home till like midnight, and it's just like I got 3 other things I'm working on right now, and I'm like, I just don't want to do this, but I said it. It's a habit. We got to make it happen. We got to talk about something today on Manning the Grill, my lunchtime chat about whatever, and I'd like to welcome Nelson Donovan, Estate Law Partners. How you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm doing well. Looking forward to a string of 90-degree days. No complaints.
Right. I'm going to tell you, we were at I know you're a baseball fan, so I'll give you this. We were at Miller Park. It was so weird with only 12,000 people there. So they're at 50% capacity as of, well, not yesterday, day before yesterday, so Memorial Day. And 12,000 people. Miles and I pulled up, and there's just no cars.
Yeah.
And you walk in, like all the big restaurants are closed. They're not even open yet, and just it's just so weird yet, man. But I'm very happy to say that my Tigers pulled a win out. It was a great game, a little offensive explosion. It's kind of fun to go to a game like that, and it was a good day. Have you guys been yet? You taking your kids yet since Soul Mess is built?
So we actually caught a game at in Rockies, the Rockies game in what was it? Early April. Game of the season. They were playing my favorite team, the Dodgers, and it was kind of cool. So we've not gone to a Brewers game though yet this year.
What was their capacity at that time when you went in there? Was it 25 or was it party tickets or
50%? May have been a little bit less. I know it seems to me there were pods, and maybe it was 25%. It was pretty low.
Sure.
We didn't have anybody. The row in front, the row behind, and seats on either side.
Yeah.
So, probably 25%.
Yeah. We tried so hard. There was 8 different foul balls that came near us. And for whatever reason, the bounces or the kid in front of us had a glove, so he snapped one real quick. We just couldn't get one. That's all my kid wanted. I was like, dude, I've been chasing foul balls my entire life, so just get used to it, right?
It's a bit of a melee. What worked out for us is we got there early, which is kind of a rarity. Got there really early for during warm-ups, and because there was nobody around, my boys went down to the rail while they were throwing and just kind of getting people's attention. And Julio Urias, who threw the last out in the World Series last fall, actually made eye contact with my son and threw a ball to him. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's always the best. That's the whole point of going there, right? You see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is.
We
got a trip later this summer where we're kind of hitting the road for a few days, a little over a week, and we're gonna go see the Toledo Mud Hens, and we're gonna catch a game at Cleveland, and we're gonna see the Pirates and the Phillies play, and then head back. We might catch a Reds game. Just kind of a baseball trip. So this would be fun.
Yeah, that's my team, the Toledo Mud Hens. I grew up in 45 minutes from Toledo.
All right.
That was our minor league team. When my dad didn't want to go to Detroit, we would go to Toledo and watch minor league baseball, the Mud Hens.
Well, we'll take a picture and we'll send it to you.
Right? Place will probably change. So cool. All right. So today's subject is estate planning, and I couldn't think of a better person to talk about estate planning than the leader of the leader of Estate Law Partners, Nelson Donovan here. I'll give you a quick story for everyone listening. My wife and I, we're in our mid-40s now. We've been married 15 years, got 2 kids, and we're at that point. We're at that point where we've got a little something, right? Whether it be liquidity, a house or 2, some stuff you want to kind of protect. We're also at that point where people who are older than us, our mentors, are passing away, and we're kind of inheriting a couple things here and there. And we had been struggling for a little while on how to do this, and all she wanted was a will. And I didn't quite know why she wanted a will, but she just wanted a will to protect her kids. And I'm like, but what? I knew there was more to it, but I didn't quite know how to ask or what to do. And lo and behold, a couple of years ago, Nelson came to one of my networking meetings, and we've been great friends ever since. And he explained the process to me. So my wife and I just went through this 2 years ago, I guess, 2 years ago now, just over 2 years ago. And I loved how they explained the difference between, what the will does and what the estate does. I think it's very important to kind of explain to people, because I meet a lot of people when we talk about our trust. We have a trust. And I'm like, what do you have in it? I'm like, well, nothing but our house, but and a couple of assets. But as you grow, it gets bigger. And the whole point, which is what I want you to explain, the whole point of what happens when and if we die. And we're going to die someday. Mm-hmm. This is top of mind to me because my grandmother-in-law, just passed away, and it was kind of a poop show. Not a horrible poop show, but it wasn't planned very well. It could have been planned much better. And there was a lot of things that were left up in the air that we had to kind of figure out. And it was great from knowing you, Nelson, because when I saw it happen, I was like, oh my God, he's totally right. It literally happened like you kind of explained it would be. So, on that note, I'll kind of let you take it away. What is an estate plan, and why the heck do people need one?
It's a really great question, Lane. The thing about an estate plan is there's misconception about what does that word mean. There's this thought that, that's only for old people. I don't need an estate plan. I just have a simple situation. It's got to be really straightforward. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are a lot of straightforward situations, but there's no simple situation. There's no simple solution. And so all an estate plan is basically a playbook. You think about coming up with a playbook that you're going to follow certain instructions if certain things present themselves. If it's 1st and 10 from the 20, you might chuck a pass. And so you've got a play written out. And the estate plan is that. It's a plan in the event of incapacity. So everybody tends to focus on, the will, and when I die, and I want to make sure that things go to the right people. Well, frankly, that's kind of the easy part. The bigger part is what happens if one of us becomes ill and incapacitated and maybe can't make decisions? What happens if we both wind up in that circumstance? Who's going to be able to keep the lights on, pay the bills, make sure that the kids have a roof over their head while perhaps we're infirm in some way? So an estate plan is a group of documents to do various things. And you can have an estate plan that centers upon a will, and you can have an estate plan that centers upon the concept of a living trust. Sure. We tend to favor living trusts, which is what you guys did. And the idea behind a living trust, and really the big difference between wills and trusts, is, do you want a private playbook that your trusted people can carry out, or do you just want to leave a set of instructions for the court to broker and supervise your family in taking care of things? So a will, and a very popular misconception, but a will does not avoid probate. A will is a ticket to probate. That's exactly what it is. And
when you say ticket, what do you mean? Like automatically go to probate with a will?
Right. So if you die with owning assets, there is a plan for you. The state of Wisconsin has got a set of laws to say where your stuff is going to go. And if you want to have some say in that, if you want it to be a little bit different than the state plan, why then that's why you write a will, because a will allows you to set those rules. But the court still is the arbiter. They're the broker. They're the forum for being able to turn on those powers and use them. The nice thing about a trust is it's like a basket for all of your things, house, bank accounts, personal property, and you take it out of the court's purview. You say, hey, I've got my own plan. I'm going to package this stuff in such a way that I can do whatever I want. But the people I trust, whether it's my spouse, maybe my parents, my oldest child, my sibling, or a professional, I have this plan that they can just take over. Now, beyond that, you've got some other documents, powers of attorney for finances, powers of attorney for healthcare, and that's why it's called a plan, because there's a number of documents.
Great. One of the things I found really interesting that your team walked me through was, like I said earlier, my wife was about protecting the kids. Mm-hmm. But one of the things we never thought about, you never thought far in advance of what about when the kids start to take over and which kid takes over first.
Mm-hmm.
And my years of networking and being in real estate, one of my favorite questions to ask, I'm going to ask you this question. One of my favorite questions to ask estate attorneys is, what's the weirdest youth thing you've ever run across? And I didn't prepare you for that because I like to just wait for the craziest thing. Like, seriously, that happened? But weirdest things ever happened from an estate, incapacity situation.
So are you talking about the weirdest circumstance that somebody was planning for, or the weirdest thing that actually happened?
I would say the weirdest thing that probably actually happened because there wasn't a plan in place.
Oh, because there wasn't a plan in place.
Yes. That's always my favorite story. Like, oh, that happened? Oh, yeah, that happened.
Yeah. I mean, kind of a tragic story that's reasonably obvious to this area. There was a family that got in a terrible auto accident on Highway 30 a couple of years ago. And I actually did some news clips with Channel 3 about this. I knew one of the reporters there and asked me to do some kind of live stream stuff to talk about what happens where a mom and dad die and there's two little kids left behind. And ultimately what happened was there was a family that thought that they could just leave verbal instructions and that those verbal instructions would carry any weight. And the problem is the husband told his brother that if something happens, he wants kids. And the wife told her sister, and I can't remember the details, but basically he told his siblings, she told her siblings. There was a disagreement. Grandparents were involved. And you wind up going to court and you wind up having to advocate and say why you're the best choice and why you should be the one to take care of these kids, when really the most important thing is focusing on those kids at the time. So, that's kind of a really unfortunate situation that nobody likes to see stuff like that. So at a minimum, if you have kids, do a will, because a will is where you appoint guardians. That's why you might have a will and a trust, but do a will so that it's clear. And I know that's probably the hardest choice, is who is going to be your replacement if you don't. But you got to remember, nobody is going to be as good as mom and dad ever. No, it's always going to be second best. And it's better to have a second best lined up than to let the family sort it out.
Yeah. You don't need to be on a telephone with your kids' well-being, right?
Yeah.
That being said, it was funny. That was one of the things that Kristen kind of struggled with is you broke it down where there's someone who takes care of your kids and there's someone who takes care of your assets that will feed the kids, right? Take care of them. And in her head, it was always the same people. Let's just go traditionally when you get married, right? It'll be the godparents, right? I'm like, our godparents live in Milwaukee, man, and they're divorced. So that didn't work, right? And that's actually, that situation right there is when it really hit me. I was like, oh God, the plan we had, if they're divorced now, we don't even see, it just changed. It's kind of happened. So how would you walk someone through this and talk about your process? Because it was really attractive how you do it at Estate Law Partners compared to other estate attorneys. Not saying one's worse or better, just I really liked the way you did it. And then what would you tell a young family? Let's say I'm in my mid-40s when I started. I think, knowing what I know now, I should have probably did this in my mid to late 20s. How would you tell a person like that, this is a good time to do this, start thinking about this, and here's your next steps?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously in private practice, I see people who tend to be older, let's say north of 40. Yeah. But I happen to be an Army reservist, and I'm a JAG, which is an attorney in the Army Reserve. And I do a lot of estate plans for really young families too. 20-year-old soldiers, 20-year-old spouses with, a couple of kids. I mean, some really, really, really young people with families that are developing. And, in those circumstances, you kind of have to triage who needs this, who doesn't need this. And typically when I see a single person, if you're a single person and you like your parents, you probably don't need to worry about planning. If you get married and you've got a spouse, if you want everything to go to the spouse, if something happens to you, you probably still don't need a will or a trust per se. It's when we introduce kids that we really need to start at least leaving some basic documents in place. many of us have 401ks and IRAs, and you don't automatically have the ability to make decisions about your disabled spouse if you have that. So powers of attorney start to make sense. So as we start to accumulate our retirement plans, that's when we want to think about having something like that. But I think the biggest barrier is nobody likes to pick up the phone and talk to an attorney. You just don't want to do that. I mean, think about it. Who wants to go sit in some stuffy office in a chair and talk about dying? It's not pleasant.
Sure.
So what we've done is we've tried to remove the barriers, make it as approachable as possible. First of all, we're all very approachable people. I'm the oldest one around this place. We've got a nice staff of younger folks. The 3 attorney owners are younger. We're all fairly young, but I'm the old guy. And it is much more conversational. And we can do almost everything via Zoom now. So when we've got mom and dad with different jobs at different locations and different schedules, it's a lot easier to bring us together via Zoom. And more often than not, it's a great way to connect and be convenient to busy planners, because these people that need to plan are busy folks.
Right.
Kids, activities, daycare, stuff at night. I mean, the last thing you want to do is carve out an hour or 2 of your day to talk about things that, a lot of people are the attitude, oh, what do I care? I'll be dead. Well, it's the people who are behind that do care. So,
right.
So our process can be all virtual. And really the only thing that needs to happen is a client comes to our office for a 30-minute signing meeting. You don't even have to get out of your car. So what you look at on one end is the traditional 3-wall, 3 names in a marble hallway, stuffy law firm, hours, billable rates. You have no idea what it's going to cost. And on the other end, you've got LegalZoom. Download some Mad Libs and fill out these forms, and you've got a plan. Well, on the one end, nobody wants to go sit in a stuffy law firm with an unpredictable bill. And on the other end, the problem with LegalZoom is you'll never know if you did it right because you're gone.
Right.
So how can we find the middle ground? Easy to access, predictable pricing. Everything starts off with a conversation with me. I block a half hour to have kind of a triage meeting. I call myself the triage nurse and answer questions. We've got a really brief questionnaire that kind of gets you in the mindset. And I'll make a suggestion and I'll quote a flat fee. So we have a printed menu. So you look at it and it's like, okay, I can understand that. I can say yes or no. I've got the information. Do I need this? And is it value for money? So our process has just tried to make it so much more accessible that people will do what they really need to do.
Sure. Yeah. And it was so easy. I dreaded it for so long and didn't want to talk about it. And like I said, didn't understand it and didn't seek out education. And you guys made it really easy. And I will gladly endorse the estate law partners all day long, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So
go ahead.
No, you go.
So I was going to say, in tangential with real estate, when we tend to favor trusts, and there's a lot of reasons why we favor trusts, and probably beyond the scope of the time we have, but a lot of people are concerned about, well, how do I buy and sell my home? Can I refinance it? I don't understand how this trust is going to make my life harder. And so that's from the consumer side. And then sometimes we have from the agent side, they might not understand the trust and like, oh, let's get it out of the trust and just do this in a name. It's easier. It doesn't complicate the process at all. It makes it so much easier. And you can finance your home. You can refinance your home. If you've got a lender that doesn't understand trust, well, there's probably 10 more lenders lined up who'd be happy to take your business. And I just want to say that trusts allow you to have multiple pieces of real estate in multiple states. If you've got rental properties, you can have those held in LLC, assigned into a trust. I know that's a lot of acronyms and throwing stuff around, but what I want to take away from this is do not fear the trust. And it will not complicate your life regarding real estate. It is a perfectly sensible, kind of a fun thing to do. Go to the, like in Madison, you can go to the city assessor's website and grab a block, of 10 or 15 or 20 addresses and look at the owners. And it's, Bob and Sally, Jim, whatever, just person's name, trust, person's name, trust. And you'll see that it's fairly common here in Wisconsin that there'll be, especially if you get into the, more established neighborhoods versus the newer neighborhoods where people may have gone through the process. Maybe it's their second or third home and they've had a trust for a while, but super common, super easy. I've got some webinars that are easy to watch, and I like to say it's more convenient to plan or consume content when you're wearing an elastic waistband in the comfort of your home.
Fat pants. Yep.
That's the word. Yeah. I didn't want to say that. I'm packing a few pounds right now, more than I'd like. But
so remember what I said? What I would have. One of the things I learned is I would have started doing this in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
That's when I bought my first investment property. That's the exact reason is why I would say I would do this earlier. It 100% doesn't complicate it. 100% from a realtor makes it a little cleaner and easier because there's always names, a succession plan, if you will, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm using the right terminology, especially in our neighborhood. So especially like Inner Madison, U Hills, Tacoma, those mature adults that still own homes, when they pass on or go to their next step for whatever reason, and generally it's either death, incapacity. If that's in place, it's a whole lot easier to get your home marketed, put on the property when I know exactly who I got to talk to, right? I'd much rather have a conversation of Nelson is the one to talk to. The other three brothers and sisters are kind of reporting to him, or siblings or nephews or whoever's part of the trust or estate. Whole lot easier than when that person passes or becomes incapacity and there isn't a named person. It's very messy. We've had deals for 3-4 extra months just to get the official approval from the court to say we can sell this property or not, right?
Well, that's exactly the key point there is the delays. You have a family that wants to achieve a goal, and you've got a professional that can help them get to that goal. So the family and the realtor. And if you have the structure of a trust, it's just carry out the plan. It's make decisions and move, take advantage of opportunities in the market or wait for opportunities in the market. If you pull that structure out and everything has to be an ask and answer from the court, can we list this? Well, we got to review this. And the hearing's going to be in 3 weeks. And, oh, by the way, COVID, and that's going to take another 3 weeks. So
is the price appropriate? Like, you're going to pay for an appraisal?
Exactly.
I'm supposed to be your appraisal.
Exactly. So it can be frustrating for the agent because the agent is just trying to do things. They know the market. They know whether they need to move and jump on things. But if everything has to be, mother may I from the court, boy, you can miss a lot of opportunity. And especially in a hot market like this, it just makes things easier. We don't want to plan on bad things happening to us, but the fact is we all have a finite amount of time here, and bad things do happen to some people. Hopefully it's other people, but
right.
If it happens to be you got to plan for it. Bad things do happen. So I had kind of an interesting, kind of intersection with information about chance and how you just never know how chance is going to work out for you. This is kind of really off topic, total non sequitur here, but and maybe we should talk about this at some point. But my grandfather was a World War II POW. So he was in the Philippines. He was a doctor in the Army. He was in the Philippines. The fall of Corregidor, was a prisoner of war. Went on these hell ships up to Formosa, and then was held in Japan for until the end of the war. He survived, and by that I'm here. So my father was born, I was born, la la la. So I'm watching CBS Saturday Morning, and there's a story about these hell ships, and And the number of unidentified unknown soldiers that were killed in these ships. So what the Japanese were doing is they were using merchant ships, and under the cover of these merchant ships, they were moving prisoners. So they had American soldiers on there, or other, all Allied soldiers on there. The Americans were actually attacking these ships because they thought they were supplies. They didn't know that they had put prisoners on there. And so hundreds and hundreds of American soldiers were killed. And basically they were buried in mass graves. These mass graves were moved to the cemetery in Hawaii, the Punch Bowl. And so there's an effort now through technology to actually go in there and do some DNA analysis so they can get closure for these families, or at least continuation for these families to understand what happened. Well, so here's the thing that I thought was interesting. The story, the woman they interviewed, her father had been an Army doctor. So her mother and this young girl, 2-3-year-old girl, were evacuated from the Philippines. Well, my grandfather was an Army doctor, and his wife, my grandmother, and their 2 or 3-year-old daughter were also evacuated from the Philippines. So the exact same fact pattern, the exact same death march experience, the exact same hell ship experience. They were on different hell ships. This guy died. My grandfather survived. So it's just nuts how just the razor of fate strikes indiscriminately. And it's much better to have a plan than to not have a plan.
Well, definitely. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I couldn't believe the coincidence. I'm watching this going, this is unreal. The coincidence between the fact pattern in my family and the fact pattern in this family, and the outcomes couldn't have been any more different. I mean, my grandfather came back, had my father, had my aunt, so they had 3 children, and here we are 75 some odd years later, and this family just ended.
That's, the whole anniversary of the Tulsa massacre. Yeah. Talking about that stuff, and I was telling my kids, I'm like, I didn't even hear about that. At Black Skin, I didn't even hear about that until I was 40. Maybe 7-8 years ago. That was atrocious what happened there, right?
It was.
As we talk about, one of the projects I'm involved in around here is this product called Own It. And it's an initiative with some area realtors to create or build Black wealth in places that there normally wouldn't be wealth. And one of the things, and I'll talk to you about this offline, but one of the things that I find very interesting about the estate, it's all about mindset, right? If you create an estate and start from scratch and put your property in there early, it's very easy to continue to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then you're already building wealth. You're building an entity to hand off to kids, nephews, whatever the next generation is later on. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I'm like, I really wish we could almost get this estate idea into schools, and just kind of, when you're Black, we call it thinking white, right? I'm like, I don't necessarily need to call it thinking white. It's just because you don't have it, right? You don't have it. It's the other side of the tracks, all that stuff, all the stuff we've been talking about of people who look like me that have been kind of oppressed. Yeah. I was lucky enough to be around enough white people that I didn't have to think white. It was just part of what we all thought. Right. But get that in there, right? And remember, I was raised by farmers, basically. So that was, it was a trust, but it wasn't really a trust. It was all based on your property and what the property can produce for you. I'm assuming as they got older and smarter, they started putting that in trust. But that's how important this is to me, because I'm like, this makes total sense. This is what Reese and Miles are going to get later on. And hopefully if I do it right, it'll help their kids, grow into bigger properties or, their first homes, et cetera, et cetera. Because one of the things we're struggling with, and this program, this Own It, is the idea is you get a family of color, get them a down payment. They can kind of bypass the down payment assistance program, hopefully getting themselves a little more creative and getting into their first home. So it's very difficult here in Madison to get in your first home if you have assistance and that kind of stuff. And I've thought that often, like, how do my kids, your kids, when they go to buy their first home, what is it going to be like for them? I thought it was pretty easy for me. My first house was on Grand River Avenue in East Lansing, Michigan, $86,000, 2 lots, beautiful perennial garden, little World War II bungalow.
Yeah.
but these kids are trying to pop 300K into their first, and they're going to need help with that. If that's what the case is, how do we prepare them for the future? This vehicle can do that, correct?
Well, the thing is if you do have that or that intergenerational transfer with some logic and some security and some left and right limits, and obviously that takes the older generation, the effort to plan. You can provide that safety net. So a lot of times when we're talking to folks about what an inheritance might look like, we'll say, this would be a good idea if we put this into a limited access mechanism till a certain age. And the idea is I want this to be a safety net for you, not just, spending cash. And the idea is when you think about, communities of color or not color, white or black or whatever, and you think about how we have intergenerationally been able to build wealth, that the plan is a way to maybe help young people not make bad choices because they may not have a community around them, but they can have the structure for the financial sense. And, when I think about the opportunity that I've been able to take advantage of, the military certainly helped get my head on straight. But, when I was buying our first home here in Madison, when my wife and I came back, my folks helped me out. And there's a lot of, that program that you're talking about can help to maybe be like folks helping out. I will say, when it comes to estate planning, when we advertise, when we reach out on Facebook or social media or any digital advertising, we're indiscriminate. Basically, it's like, if you live in this zip code, we're advertising to you. But the response we get will sometimes look a lot like us. And I think that there might be some concern about being open, about wanting to reveal your thoughts when it comes to estate planning, because maybe we don't look alike. And I would say, and it's very easy for me to say in my chair, I wouldn't let that be a factor in keeping you from getting at this information.
Correct.
The information doesn't care what you look like. Having a plan doesn't care what you look like. It's having the sense to have a plan, to make sure that you think about adversity, you think about those turns in the road that you don't expect, and equipping the people that you care about, your family, your loved ones, equipping them with the best tools to deal with that adversity. That doesn't have a skin tone related to it. It's just, are you a person? Do you have a family? Do you care about them? You should have these documents.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. I love it. That's a fear. It's a concern too, right? Mm-hmm. But cool. It's 30 minutes, Nelson. I really appreciate you taking a little time to review this with me. Like I say, my wife and I have really benefited from it. Estate Law Partners, I put the link in the comments there, so if anyone wants to call Nelson and get this process started. I've told you before, but I love the new logo.
We're really proud of our new brand. We rebranded this year, and it's really energizing. We're really happy about it, and just really want to help, get the story out there so that we can help folks and make this as easy and approachable and painless as possible.
Right. No, I think you've done a phenomenal job. Like I said, my wife and I, till this day, it's been 2 years, we still kind of touch on it, and we just got all the stuff transferred over.
Yeah. But just real quick about our core values there, you just had that up, our uniques. The way we talk about care and we talk about creating a remarkable experience is ultimately what that means. And we want to create that remarkable experience for families as they come through our process.
Perfect. Awesome. So in closing, I want to remind everyone too about Friday, February 4th, this Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., the Dream Lane Real Estate Tap Takeover.
June 4th. June 4th. You said February 4th. I am not going back to winter.
Sorry. June 4th. Did I say February? Did I really say February?
Yeah, I know. I think you might have seen Friday, and then you started thinking it's going to be 90, and I want it to be winter, but
yes, June 4th, this Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. We're going to raise some money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society as the outgoing Man of the Year. The 5th, the new Man of the Year, Man, Woman of the Year will be anointed or crowned, or I guess whatever the proper term is. And so this is our last chance. I kind of joked. I did a video. I haven't put it on here yet. I boosted this post, but Facebook wouldn't let me boost it. I don't know if it's because I had alcohol in it or what, but I haven't figured it out. But anyway, I did a video giving people directions to Delta Beer Lab. I'll post on the event site later, but they're generous. The brewer, Tim Pioski or whatever, was really generous last year, gave me a full experience to donate off as an auction item. They've been amazingly generous this year. They've got a new outdoor front space and a new outdoor back space. So I think all the mandates are down now, if I'm not mistaken, or at least 50%.
As of today.
As of today, right? But they've got ample room to get around there, and they can use your help. Many businesses around our area can use your help. Check them out. They've been going at it about 2 years, and I would hate to have this second year, pandemic year, be your second year in business, but they fought through it. They grinded away, and I want to give them some love because we couldn't really give them love last year at the end of our thing because of the whole, and that was really bad last year. This time last year was really bad. It was right, 2 months in and no one knew what to do, and they just kept grinding. So think about us. Nelson, thank you again for your time. Like I say, always awesome talking to you. We can go on. I gotta find my mouse. Where's my mouse at there? We could go on for hours, military-wise, all kinds of good stuff. I didn't even bring Dan in here. Dan's don't have a vet. I still got to introduce you guys, but
yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in a couple.
Thank you for the invite, Lane. Happy to do this anytime.
Awesome, man. Take care.
All right.